Guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Courtney King, and today's short talk is going to be about the cons of working for an American tech company versus a European tech company. This is the fourth video in my four-part series comparing tech roles over the two continents. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, so the first item on my list is a funny one. So in my last video, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. But in my last video, I talked about how generally American teams and also customers are a little bit happier and more enthusiastic, and I would add a little bit more upbeat. The downside to this is a little something called toxic positivity. So American tech companies, I would say, are huge about toxic positivity, as well as sort of overly enthusiastic, like stupid team building exercises. And I think that the two go hand in hand, even if they don't sound like they do right off the top. There's something about American corporate culture where everyone wants you to force you to be like a super happy, upbeat robot all the time. Even if it's not a good day or something is wrong or you're not happy, there's sort of this expectation that everybody will just sweep that stuff under the rug, and that if you're a good team member that is ready to contribute, you'll be in a good mood all the time and do your best to only say positive things. This is bad for so many reasons. It creates a total echo chamber where it is hard to understand what your company or your team actually needs to work on, because people are tiptoeing over the negative stuff, tiptoeing over the constructive feedback when they need to just be upfront and honest about that stuff. But then there's an element where toxic positivity, you guys all know what I mean by this, I don't have to go into it, but there's an element where toxic positivity is also just really annoying and cringe. And it's like, nobody is that upbeat all the time. So a lot of times, in order to fit in at American tech companies, you feel like you need to chug a Red Bull at the very least in order to have your energy levels at an 11 out of 10. And then you can get on Zoom and start your day. I feel like with my European teams, it was a little more accepted to be a little bit lower energy, a little bit more realistic about how your day is going. How's your day going? It's okay. I feel like in the United States, if someone asks you how your day is going, they only want to hear a positive answer. They're not looking to hear a realistic answer, right? So I would say that that is a con, because it just makes it a little bit harder to show up on the hard days, to show up emotionally and to show up literally on Zoom. Also, stupid team building exercises. I just happen to hate these. It's probably, I'm a natural introvert despite the fact that I'm making videos on YouTube. So I don't like forced artificial social events. And that's exactly what a remote team building exercise for a corporate company is. They force you and your team all onto the phone at the same time, no matter what you have going on in your day. And they make you play stupid games as though you're 5 years old. They make you do like online scavenger hunts and crossword puzzles and trivia. And look, there's a lot of people who are into that stuff. And so maybe you're looking at me and you're like, wow, what a miserable person. That sounds so fun. I don't think it's fun. I think it's super annoying. I like my coworkers, but I'm happy to just connect with them one-on-one or like in a more organic nature. I don't want to be forced onto the phone at 5 p.m. at the end of my day to play trivia. That's dumb. So yeah, that's my first item on this list: toxic positivity and stupid team building exercises. Two things you will never find at a European tech company. Okay, the next item on my list is that American tech companies can be more competitive. I think what I mean by this is more competitive in terms of landing the role in the first place. And also, yeah, maybe during your time at the company as well. I just think the competition is something that Americans concern themselves with quite a bit. And even though I've never worked at a company that I felt like was really cutthroat, like all my team members were sharks or anything like that, I definitely feel like, number one, it's harder to land roles at American tech companies. I think simply because there's just a larger skilled talent pool in the United States. I'm not quite sure why that is. I think it's just a difference in maturity in the tech industry. Obviously, there are millions upon millions of really talented and qualified and educated people in Europe. That goes without saying. But for tech specifically, it just feels like there's a lot more people who have deep experience in tech, lots of experience working at huge companies, you know, the Apples and the Googles of the world. So it can be a little bit more intimidating when you enter a company, you finally land the role, and then you realize everybody there is from like an Ivy League school, or everybody there is like ex-Google, or everyone there is coming from a Big Five consulting firm. Yeah, just a more competitive, more intense sort of environment in terms of resumes. The next item on my list, and this one you will hear me talk about all the time, people working on their days off. This is like so terrible about Americans that they do this. People working on their days off, people requesting PTO, being granted that PTO, and still working, taking calls and answering emails on federal holidays. It is so terrible. And I definitely wish, that this was something that we could change. Definitely a lot less likely to happen when you're working for a European tech company. There's all sorts of differences between work-life balance. And in general, I just feel like Americans feel very guilty about taking time away from their job, even when they work for a really large company with a really large team, and they're kind of just a cog in a machine, and it doesn't matter if they're there or not. Things are going to flow smoothly regardless. People will still be checking Slack, answering Slack messages, returning emails and stuff, instead of like celebrating their kid's birthday, which was the whole reason that they took the day off in the first place. This one's terrible, and it acts as a contagion. It encourages everybody else on your team to work on their day off. If you're in leadership, it's especially toxic because it sets the precedent that that's what you expect from the rest of your team. I have a whole video about this. Go watch it. There's a huge, huge problem with Americans not doing themselves any favors with PTO and work-life balance. Before we get into the next item on my list, do me a favor, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, hell, even leave me a comment. All of these things help me out with the algorithm, and they ensure that my videos reach the people that they're supposed to reach. So if you could just do the damn thing, that would be awesome. So the next item on my list is the quality of networking events, and I would just say company events in general in the United States, is worse. When I say worse, I don't mean that they don't spend a lot of money. They do, right? American tech companies have budgets just as big as European tech companies, often larger. So it's not about the amount of money. It's just that they have like a super corny, super corporate attitude towards these networking events. They almost always, a lot of them take place remotely, which it's, look, remote events in the corporate world are never fun. I don't care what anyone says. You can do as much pomp and circumstance as you want. They're always really boring and goofy because they're on Zoom. But even in person, conferences, all sorts of things, they always take place in a hotel ballroom. There's just miles and miles of khakis and Patagonia vests. No drinking, no alcohol, no good music, nothing to loosen people up. Just people walking around with like name badges attached to lanyards, talking about boring stuff. You get a little bag of goofy swag. It's like a ballpoint pen with the company's name on it, and a little booklet, an empty journal that you'll never use with the company's name on it. Really goofy swag gifts. And my experience with the European tech companies is that they were really, really good at these events. Essentially, they would rent out a large room or private space in a really cool bar or restaurant. They were almost always held after work. They always included an open bar and a DJ. They were more just like fun parties where you talked a little bit about work. Maybe there would be a short keynote speech from the CEO or maybe a short presentation, but typically, especially networking events, you're just there to meet people and talk to people and to create hype around the product or around the company. And I don't even drink, but I have to acknowledge the importance of having alcohol at these events. They really loosen people up. They really get people to connect with each other in a more genuine way, sort of get you out of that rigid professional mode that you're in a lot of times, especially when you work for an American tech company. You guys really need to throw some booze into your events and stop holding all of them in goofy hotel ballrooms. Like, rent another space. I don't know why that's the standard. They're always events that you don't really want. You're like being dragged by your boss. You don't really want to attend them because it's just going to be 3 hours of almost torture. Super corny event planning. That's a big con for me. The final item on my list, cons of working for an American tech company versus a European tech company. lots of things happen in a thought vacuum. What I mean is that because American tech companies are less diverse, not racially or ethnically or anything like that, but less diverse in terms of ideas, in terms of background, in terms of the countries that people are coming from. You know, if you're working in North America for a North American company, obviously it's going to be mostly North Americans. That's different from working for a European company because obviously Europe is made up of many different countries. You usually have people from many different countries at this European company. And so all of those people are going to bring their cultural experiences to the job, their ideas about tech, their ideas about productivity, about efficiency, about time management, about, strategic planning, about business. All of those different ideas sometimes make it more difficult to find consensus, but it gives you a more diverse array of ideas and viewpoints to choose from and to pull from when you're trying to solve problems and solve problems creatively. I think there's a huge problem with sort of Silicon Valley culture infiltrating all aspects of the tech industry in the United States and honestly in industries outside of tech as well. And it can just be very common to just follow the herd. And whatever it is, every other American company in your space is doing, you just follow what they're doing. It's just a copycat thing. And everybody has just like a bubble of the same sort of ideas and information and less creativity, right? There's less creativity as a result. So because of that, sometimes I think that it can be harder to innovate at a large scale. It can be harder to find the true creative solutions to your customers' problems because everyone you talk to just has the same background in terms of education and in terms of their professional background. And so everybody just has the same thoughts and ideas. And when you try and bring something new to the table, it can kind of be rejected just because it's not customary, right? It's not custom. That's very different from a European company. Like I said, there's definitely less consensus when you work for a European tech company because of all of those viewpoints. But on some levels, I do think that amount of diversity of thought is a really, really good thing. And so the lack of that diversity of thought in American tech companies, for me, is the biggest con of working for one. Okay, guys, that's it for me. If you've stayed with me through all 4 videos in this series, thanks a lot. Congratulations to you. I hope you learned something from this. Drop me a comment and tell me what you think. I'm always looking to improve, so I would love to hear. Other than that, keep watching the channel, and I will see you in the next video.